Hi everyone, today we're going to talk about lighting in your buildings. It'll be just some basic intro stuff, basic tips for lighting your own buildings, and we're going to focus on a couple of these green elevators here. Advanced tips are going to come with this one, and behind it is the rural grain elevator that we're going to give you a good intro on. We are working on this one today. We're going to be using some of these little LEDs. These are 0402 SMD LEDs. You can barely see them there. These are great for yard lights or like lights off the side of a building. That's what I really like using them for. We'll show you how to do that here in a little bit. You need resistors for them. I've kind of pre-soldered these together. I don't have the right resistance right now, but two of these together make the right resistance. Too much power and you will blow your LEDs up, so it's a good idea to get some cheaper ones, and that way you can afford to make some mistakes. This is just a 9-volt battery pack with a 9-volt battery in it and 2 bare leads, so I can use that for testing until we get onto the layout. Soldering iron, this one is a nice kit off of Amazon for about 30 bucks. It will actually heat itself up. You can adjust the temperature and everything like that. Has its own stand, comes with its own kit and everything. And then I'm using these. There's a website called Hobbyist Haven that makes all sorts of nice stuff. These were micro bits for about 5 bucks. And we're going to use probably the yellow one right here to drill some holes and show you what we're going to do there. And then if you need it, shrink tubing. I recommend at least putting shrink tubing on a little bit so you don't risk causing any shorts or anything like that. So I'm going to grab a drill bit. I'm going to tell you about what we're doing for lighting. We're going to be putting one down here. This is going to shine kind of over the entrance to the filling station where semis pull up. We're going to put one here above where kind of all the lighting and everything would be for that. I'm going to put another one here. We're going to put one on the inside up there, and then we're actually going to put one up here in the roof to kind of light up these top few windows. I kind of do this with almost all my buildings that have lighting in them. I will build the roof but not actually attach it and just use tape so it kind of stays in place, and then that gives me the basis to be able to flip this open, put the light up there, or you just use tape to attach it and then push it back closed again, and it looks pretty normal sitting there. So that's kind of the plan. I thought about lighting the little hut right here, decided not to. Rural grain elevators really don't have a lot of lights on them on the outside, so that's why we're going kind of minimalist today on lighting, because that's pretty much all the lights that you're going to get on a rural grain elevator. It's supposed to be smaller or older lights. One thing I forgot to mention, these SMD LEDs, they are warm white. There's different colors and temperatures you can get. For older, more natural lighting, I like doing the warm white. For newer buildings or maybe lighting that's been updated, I'll do the cool white. It gives it more like that normal LED look that you guys are used to. So it just kind of depends on that for you. All right, let's get started. So in order to keep this easy, one of the things I like to do so that these LEDs always face down, and I don't know if I can show this on camera very well. Let me bring this up here. These have an actual direction to them, and you can see this kind of yellow face. That's your actual light emitting diode, and this is the back. The easy way to keep these separate and pointed in the right direction is I will usually drill 2 holes side by side like this, and then pull that light through so that they face, so it faces down, and then that way you get that nice directional light down. So that's one thing that we're going to work on. You have to be very, very careful doing that, because you can pull the LED or the wires off the LED doing that, and if you do, well, good luck getting that solder back together nicely. That's why I always buy the pre-soldered ones, because it's a nightmare if not. Anyways, grab your bit, kind of measure it against your wire, This is the way that I do it, is if you hold your wire up and you can hold your bit behind it, you can see, like, is it enough? Is it too thick? Is it too little? Based off of how much it covers. It's okay to have it be a little bit bigger. One of the things that we're going to do is we're actually going to cover this, or put a drop of super glue, I should say, on the lights as well. And actually, let me look here. In comparison, we might use the orange bit instead. It's a little bit smaller. I think we'll have a little bit better time with that. And super glue gel. This is the stuff that I've been using. It's one of the ones I highly recommend. There's a couple different brands. Oops, as I knock 3D printed stuff over. This is the other one that I've been using. I kind of like this bottle style a little bit better. It's the same brand, but that's some of the stuff that we'll use too. Also, side note, please forgive how messy my desk is. I have a lot of projects going on. A lot of 3D printed stuff. One of these days we'll do a tutorial on some 3D printed stuff, but any Star Trek fans out there, there you go. Okay, let's start drilling some holes. So we know roughly where we want some of these to be. Let's see. I'm gonna put probably one up here. So you just kind of turn and twist it. Do it very gently. It takes a little bit of time, that's okay. You can see it starting to pull out some of the plastic right there already. There we go. If you reach around behind with your thumb, you should be able to feel the tip of the blade there. Be careful doing that. So there's one hole. Don't know if you can see that very well, but that's there. We're going to put the next one basically right next to it. Just like this. And this is what we're going to do for all 4 out of these LEDs that we're mounting. The one that goes inside the roof, we're just going to tape it to the roof. It's an easy way to do it. There we go. Just like that. So there's both holes right there, one for each wire. And let me finish drilling the rest of the holes and we'll be right back. One thing I do want to show you, to make things easier for this one LED that's on the inside, I just drilled one single hole, shoved it through from the back, and there's a spot of super glue in there. But for these lights that are on the ends, we're going to actually drill another hole up there so we can feed the wires through and hide the wires. One other thing to think about is how to hide the wires. We're going to use a little bit bigger size for that, so we don't have to be as precise. We're probably going to go to this gray one here. These have a marking on them somewhere. It's like 0.9, something like that. Yeah, 0.9 millimeters is what it is. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go in from the back because it'll be easier, and then that way we can hide the wires. Okay, now that that's done, we are ready to start feeding some wires in. So I'll use the battery here to kind of tilt this up so you guys can see it too. We're going for here, which I know is kind of tiny. I don't know if I can zoom in maybe a little. Let's find out if this will look good up or not. It's a little, apologize, it's a little pixelated, but that's okay. We will get there. So take a look at your LED, kind of figure out which one is left and right. That's going to help hold it in position. Looks like our black one is going to be left. And basically just try and feed right into the hole that we drilled, just like that. Get a little bit in there. Go for your other one. Okay, sorry about that. Had to pause the video for a second so I could lean in front of there to actually see to slide that in. I figured you guys didn't want to look at the back of my head the whole time. So now as you hold your LED up, you can use your tweezers to just kind of one by one shove these through a little bit, enough that you can reach inside, grab them and pull. And remember the note that I said earlier, you want to do this nice and gentle. No sudden quick jerks or movements. So, just like that. We're almost there. We're going to use the tweezers to help flip the LED itself over so that it points down in the direction that we want. Just about there. These ones are flatter. Just like that. We'll kind of tilt that up a little bit too. And there we go. And there's your first one fed in. We'll feed the other one in, then we'll worry about some of the wire management and getting the super glue in there as well. There we go. You can see the wires hanging out. We can just reach in, give them a pull. See that LED starting to come up there. We'll get to there and we'll adjust it. We'll hide all the wires inside here too in a minute. All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to feed the last couple of LEDs in, and then we will come back and hide the wires, and then I'll show you the next steps in soldering. One more thing I want to show you. Gluing these wires in, or excuse me, the back of the LED so it doesn't move is difficult in there. So I'm using, this is actually a barbecue skewer that I've used for a lot of other stuff. It's liquid mask, by the way. Highly recommend it if you guys are ever painting stuff with windows. And what I'm doing to make it easy, because I can't reach this up in there, is taking the super glue, squeeze out a drop like that right on the end. Kind of see that a little bit right there. And then I'm taking and tilting this so I can see the wires, and I apologize, I know that's kind of dark. Reaching in there, just touching the back of the wires with it. That's an easy way to do that without making too much of them. Okay, for this last LED that's going in the top, the way that we're going to do this to make it easy, separate your wires again so you have a little bit of a gap between them. You can kind of see that. And we're actually going to just tape it to the bottom of the roof like this. And separating the wires will help us position that LED a little bit. And then we're just going to let the wire basically hang down. We'll probably put the light in the middle, probably tape the wire over a little bit on the side like this. Oh, sorry, you guys can't even see that. Tape the light in the middle, put the wire on the side like this so it misses that window, and run down the wall. There is the LED. We'll use the tweezers to kind of position a little bit better. Okay, I apologize for this being a little dim, but we're going to do, so I'm going to bring these wires out and work on the back one first. Over here, we're going to grab these wires one by one, grab the ends, shove them through their hole that's up here that we drilled. Unfortunately, this part isn't that easy because of how far that distance is. It's going to take a little bit of finagling, but will be completely worth it when you're done, I promise. But there's one. And so I'm going to get those fed through. Just wanted to show you how to do that. If you need to, you can always use a longer one. There's also reverse tweezers like this that you actually have to squeeze to open. And that's probably a good idea for something like this. It'll make it a little bit easier. All right. All the wires are in. Time to start soldering wires to resistors. The reason there's two sets here is because if you run them all off of the one, they're going to be pretty dim. And if that's something you want, go for it. This way there'll be about the same brightness. We're going to probably run the top one and the outside one by the track off of one, and the other three that are in the mini shed over here off of the other one. Doesn't really matter which one, they're the same resistance, so we'll just kind of work on that. One thing we're going to do to help us is we're going to use this because we can put stuff in there hold it. When soldering, it's important to be careful of where your fingers are and anything that you're holding, because it will get hot. So let's see here. Let's pull some lights. Pull some wires down. So we have right here are the first 3 sets I want. These are going to all feed the side over here. The other 2 are up that way, so we'll work on that here in a little bit. We'll probably pull those up and then feed them back down when it's time for that step. So to make this easier, grab all 3 of your white ones and try and kind of straighten out the wires on them a little bit. Hold all 3 together. What you want to do is twist the wires a little bit together. Like this. Then we're going to take and solder those here in a second. So let's get the soldering iron on. Want that to heat up to 350. Depending on what you're doing for LED or electronics wiring, it's always a good idea to research that temperature. By the way, you should always have one of these that goes with the soldering iron. This allows you to scrape off excess solder or prolong the life of your soldering iron tip. But you'll always need replacement tips. All right, there we are, up to 350. See that? Here's the solder. This is electronic solder. Just want to hold this up here, and you see it start to melt. Just like that. We want some couple dots. Gonna grab our wires, run it right up the sides like this. Also be sure to have a fan on, because this does smell. Give that a few seconds to dry. And then do it again, just to make sure that it all looks okay. You want to make sure that everything is touching the connections, and it's all good to go. All right, wipe off your excess. Grab your resistors. Whoops, almost knocked that over. And to make things easy, we're just going to set this down. There you go. Alright, so there's all 3. I always bend the ends of these in little hooks, just because it helps when you're doing this step. Usually just bend it in, put it over, give it a twist. My bad. And that'll help get it in there initially. Let me pick this back up. I'll be right back. Alright. So you see those are in there as a little bit of a twist, just like that. Let that hang for a second. Gonna do the same thing. Grab more solder. It does help if you have something called flux. Flux allows solder to flow a little bit better. There you go, just like that. One step that I did forget about, that's okay, we'll put it on the black ones instead, is we did forget about putting shrink tubing on there, but that's okay. That's okay. We will worry about that as well when it's time for testing on the actual layout. Wipe some of the excess solder off here. Now, to test those and see if they're working right, we're going to grab our 9-volt section here, our 9-volt battery. We're going to take that, we're going to attach the 9-volt battery to the bottom over here where the resistors are. There we go. Make sure those are separated. And then, before we get too far, we need these 3 soldered together. So here we go, same thing with the black. Find your ends. Start with the Okay, to make this easier, we're going to actually strip some of the shielding off of those wires. So use your hobby knife, don't use a whole lot of pressure, you'll cut right through the wire. Take some of it, just kind of rub it and twist as you roll it along the edge of your blade. It'll cut it enough that you can then get in there and start to pull it off. There's a little bit of a separation right there. Just like that. Just like that. Good to go. Alright, turn that back off. I'm really happy with how fast that heats up and cools down. So now, if we want to test it, we just need to kind of quick twist these together. Better yet, take the one off of the 9-volt and just put it in a hook like that, so we can just kind of slide this up on it. There we go. And then we will test them. Let me move this so we can actually see it, and we'll give it a shot. Alright, there we go. Nice test. Let me turn a little bit of lighting off here so that you can, oops, my bad, so you can see it a little bit better. Not bad again. But there's one for the outside, there's the other outside, and there's one on the inside. It's pretty decent. When it's going to be nighttime on the layout, here, let me do this, I'll turn off the rest. You can see that's going to have a nice effect. Now I probably should tape or paint on the top here. I think we're going to just tape it just to be easy, but at least it'll be lighted, so I'll show you that in a little bit. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and solder the other two. The difference is that we're going to go from the top down, so we're actually going to kind of reverse feed everything back up through the top. And that way we can solder, have a little bit easier time doing it up there instead of trying to reach in. There we go. This is the resistor that I want. So you can see we can just reach it, which is what I wanted. I'm happy that that's the case. So we'll grab the red one. There's black, there's red. Just get that soldered on there as well. Kind of curious if I can just get it held up there. Since it already has a pre-soldered tip on it. Assume that's a no. Get a little bit of more solder here. There we go. All right, now for the black. Here is our black one. Okay, in my stash of spare parts without breaking out the new wires, I did find this. I think that's going to work perfect just for getting it down to the length that we want. The other thing that we're going to need to do is solder on probably like a positive lead to get the resistors down a little bit further. Probably use this one as well for that. That way it'll come down here. Then we can attach basically underneath the building on the layout when we get to that point. Let me get this stripped and we'll get it thrown on. Alright, this section is one of the ones where you want a piece of shrink tubing on. You don't want to cause a short by having your positive and negative wires, or in LED terms, cathode and anode, touch. So cut off a section there. I usually use this part of the soldering iron, or if you need to, up here a little bit. Just run it back and forth, twist it. You can see that kind of shrink down there. That'll be good enough. Get it too much, it'll melt into the wire, and then you kind of undid all the work you just did. So you can see the roof. I'll show you how we did our light blocking, and that's what we're actually going to do next. So this is the black masking tape I mentioned. We're going to basically come out here in strips. You want to kind of rough measure, and then I always recommend cutting it with a knife and never cutting it quite at the base, so you still have a tab you can get under like that. And we're going to come in here, basically right against the LED, like that. Put a piece of masking tape, and then we're going to do one more on the other side, and we'll see how that looks when we're done. If we need to add more, then we'll just go ahead and add more. That was not a very clean cut. Oh well, that's good. And then for this step, since the LED is there, we're going to temporarily do that. Just enough that I can slide this in behind it. There you go. Okay, we'll see what that looks like here after we get everything soldered in, but at least it's in there. Let's go back underneath here and move a couple things out of the way. See if we can get some of this other stuff soldered in here. Okay guys, we got the wires fed through. I used a piece of regular wire, just uses the lead. Got some heat shrink tubes on it, so that it'll keep them fairly separate. We'll probably use some electrical tape to separate that a little bit better. I'll have to go get that from the other room, but at least it's a pretty decent start right there, and should work pretty well. Just kind of quick twisted it up to the 9-volt battery right there, and so we can give it a test. Let me flip this over so you guys can see. And let me get some lighting out of the way and off. Here we go. Oops, keep doing that. There you go. So we have, this way. We have lights there in the windows. You have your shed light on both ends, just like that. And we have the one on the back here where the track is. There you go. Where the track side is. Overall, not bad. Let me flip some lights on. I will show you what I did for the light blocking on the top. Speaking of that, before I get too far, let me pan this up a little bit so you can see. There's just a hint of light coming out. I probably need to tighten that up a little bit better for the light blocking, but let me show you how I took care of that. Alright, here's what we did. It's this black masking tape that we used, and covering basically everything. There are some extra layers in here, right where the LED is. There's about 3 extra layers because it was really shining through even with the black masking tape in there. But this works out pretty decent. We're going to take this last piece here and throw it in here in this corner that I missed, and show you the difference that just even a single piece of masking tape like this will do. If you don't have black masking tape, you can always use flat black paint, like the flat black acrylic. That is always a good option. It always seems to work decently well. I've actually done that on a few of other buildings of mine. There, much better, much better. I even like how you can see the light coming from the windows right there. So there you have it. That's the easy way to do it. Well, maybe not as easy, but more inexpensive. And I hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you know of any even better tips, don't be afraid to let me know. Leave a comment down below, and we will go from there. My little helper here is shaking the camera. I appreciate you guys watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow, whatever it's called. and we'll be there for you. Alright guys, I wanted to show you a couple more advanced tips for wiring now that we're through the basics. You can see I'm working on the other grain elevator, and I wanted to show you a few things that you should do as kind of a best practice now that you're more used to the normal wiring. One is flux. This is called flux. It's a paste. This helps the solder flow, so take your wire, just dip the ends in just like that. Sorry, trying to get it so you can see it in focus. You don't need a lot, but just like that. What that does is that helps the solder flow, and so when we get some solder here on the tip of the soldering iron, and you put it on here, you can see it flow right through that. This process right here is called tinning the wires. It's kind of hard to see, I know, but you can see how that's now covered in solder. That's something that you want to do. You're going to have an easier time soldering if you tin the wires. Okay, another tip for you is because of how high this light is going to be that's up here right above this pole, I can't really reach it from the inside. This building is a very tall building, and you can see the normal ends of the wires hang to about there. I have extended it using a couple leads so that they reach to the very bottom, and I can easily solder them from down there. Basically, here's the extensions. That is a nice little tip for you as well. Highly recommend trying to make it easy for you to wire things yourself instead of trying to reach up into a building or anything like that. One more tip I have for you. I forgot to leave the roof off so I could put lighting in from the top. So an easy way put lighting in from the bottom is this. I have an LED with basically one wire on each side of a sprue. This is just scrap that this kit comes on, and just super glued the LED in place and then use plastic glue to glue that in, and then that does a nice job of eliminating the building up. Another thing that I did, I know my wiring is messy, so I apologize for that. You guys can perfect your wiring how you'd like. But one thing that I always do is I try to keep positive and negative, or anode and cathode when you're talking with LEDs, separate so that they don't risk touching and shorting each other. So there are the two separations right there, just taped to basically the side of the wall. And that's enough that you don't have to worry about as you look at the wires, and you don't have to worry about them touching and shorting or blowing an LED or anything like that.